Welcome everyone to my AMA. Let me get the slide up here. Boom. To my AMA for September 29. I have, I mentioned this earlier, we probably have about 30 people, which probably means about 20-25 may show. I know a lot of people watch this later on. And I have about 8 or 9 questions. Some of them are pretty good questions. And some of them are like what's the best way to save passwords is one that came up. We've talked about that before, but I'll be glad to give my tips on that. I am, oh, thank you, Betty, for enabling that. I'm going to skip by the slide of who I am because I think pretty much everybody knows who I am here. So on that, I'm going to start out with not one of my questions, but something that we talked about a little bit before. I have an Apple friend who told me, someone that I used to work with at Apple, and I talk with them still quite a bit. I actually talk with quite a few people. And these are in the retail store kind of thing, although some of them are now in the corporate area. But anyway, I have AirPod Pros, and I was using the medium tips in my ears, and they hurt. I couldn't wear them for more than 45 minutes. I love the AirPods, just the standard AirPods, because these hurt my ears. So I finally got around to it, found the box, and I put the smaller tips in them, and they are much better. So if you have AirPod Pros, I would say experiment with those with the tips. And I know Apple's trying to do the right thing, like they can do a sound check with the tips, and the sound check told me that the medium tips were best for my ears. Well, they might have been best for sound quality, but they were the worst for fit. So it really doesn't, I would say try some of those other tips. But anyway, my brother also has AirPod Pros, and he said he can't wear them because they just fall out, which somebody mentioned. I think somebody mentioned them here. They just fall out. And I was telling my friend Matt about this, and he says, what you got to get is Comply tips. And you can just, they're tips that you can get outside of Apple's tips. So I'm going to show my Mac here. And basically this is it. He says it was a Kickstarter thing maybe a year or two ago, and now they are available, and they're just foam tips. And he just told me this, if I look at the date, it was just a couple days ago. He swears by them. And he says they do not fall out. They are comfortable, and everybody seems to love them. So Comply Foam is what the website is, and you can buy them on Amazon too, apparently. But there's your little tip. I have not tried them, but I am going to try them. Absolutely try them, because I love my AirPod Pros. I just hate the comfort, and the AirPods are the ones that are more comfortable. So maybe I can get these to be more comfortable. I paid good money for them. I want to wear them. So,
I have the Pros and I have the small tips. And when you go, or if you get new ones, because I had one that broke, you get them like 4 to kit, and they all come one size. But I love them.
Yeah.
The regular AirPods, they because it was so hard plastic, they ended up hurting my ears.
Oh, really? See, that's I love that. It's so funny how everyone's different, which is why they have all these different.
It felt like it was cause a pain in one of the ears after a while.
Right,
so when I got the Pros and the soft tips, I love them.
Wow, that's interesting. Well, for those of you that are like me and not like Chris, and the AirPod Pros are a little uncomfortable, you may want to check out these Comply. It's complyfoam.com. So there's my little tip coming from another Apple person that I work, and he swears by him, and I trust him. He's somebody that I trust, and if he says they're good, I'm going to take his word for it, and I'm going to say that they're good.
Could you mute people's mics?
Oh, yes.
I'm hearing various bits and pieces of sound.
So everyone knows kind of how this works. I am I'm just kind of do things my own way. So if someone has questions, just unmute yourself and interrupt me, and then we'll kind of go from there. So, but I did mute everyone. So if you need to say something, unmute yourself. All right, let's get to.
Dan, I didn't. As long as you're talking about AirPods, you said I wish there were covers for the AirPods, a different color. Well, you wanted flesh color, but they do have skins on Amazon, but they're like navy or teal or red.
Okay.
Might
I
want to check
kind
them
of
out.
figured that they had to, but I'll look for that. Just be, I mean, I guess they're small enough. It's probably not too bad. But and plus, I'm just in a little circle over here, so over somewhere, you guys see me in a little circle, so it's not that bad. But all right, let's get to some of these questions here. Let me go back here, and our first question is from Mark. And Mark, let's see if I see a Mark here. I don't see a Mark here, so he might be watching it later. But basically what he asked was he has 2 administrator accounts on his Mac. And he wants to delete one. He just doesn't, he wants to make sure he's doing it right, understandably so. He doesn't want to delete the wrong information and things like that. So I thought what I would do is I would just show you how it all, how to delete a separate account on my Mac. I went and created a new account, and we're just going to go and delete it so then you can kind of see how it all works. It's pretty simple to do. So Mark, if you watch this later, this is how you do it. Let's go to my Mac. And basically what I have here, if I go to my system preferences and we go to our users and groups here, what you're going to see is all of my different accounts. Now I created an account for Tim Cook. Let's just say, he had this computer. Now what I want to do is I need to delete this. So when you delete it, you do have a few options, which you'll see shortly. But basically, I just want to delete it. I don't need that information or anything like that. But if you look, I can't, it's grayed out. I can't delete it. And even if I go down to the lock here, you always have to unlock it when you do something like this. And I enter in my password for the computer. If I go over to Tim, I still can't delete it. But normally what I would do is I would go to the person and then you just click on the minus and delete it. So with Tim, I still can't do it. I just kind of want to show the reasons why you may not be able to. The reason why I can't delete Tim's yet is because he is logged in. So if you want to delete someone, you have to make sure that you are logged out of that user. So how do we log out of that user? Well, you could restart the computer. That's one way of doing it. But you can also go over to that user, and the way that you would do that is if you go to login options, you can show the fast user switching. And with fast user switching, up in the menu bar, you can see all of your users. So I want to switch to Tim Cook so I can log out. All I have to do is just go over to Tim. It's going to ask me to log in as Tim. Now I'm logged in as Tim. So basically all I have to do at this point is go over to the Apple and log out. Once I'm logged out of Tim's account, I'm able to delete it. So I'm going to log out here. Doesn't matter if I reopen the windows or anything because I'm going to erase it anyway. Now I just go back over to my account. And you're going to see that I can now select Tim and I can delete him. So what this is going to do before I delete it, I'm going to show you how this works, how a Mac works. I think it's pretty much how any computer works. Basically what we have here is we have a users folder. The Mac does. So if I go, here's our Mac. Let's just look at it like this. So here's my Mac, my hard drive. And on the hard drive, what we have is an applications folder. This is where all of our applications are located. Click on it and I can see all the applications. Being that this is outside of the user, all of the users have access to these applications. That's why it's outside of the user. I have the library and system. These are folders that the Mac uses. So generally speaking, you do not want to go into these. It is not a public library. And the system, you do not want to get in there either. In fact, I've always thought that maybe they should hide these. But anyway, applications and users. And you're going to see I have all of my users here, including Tim Cook. So what's going to happen when I delete it? It is going to remove all of these folders. Every user has a desktop, a documents, a downloads, a movies, a music, and a pictures folder. Every user does, if they don't have more. If they had more, if Tim added more, he would have more in here. But basically, when you delete the user, what it will do is it'll delete this folder. So let's go ahead and delete that. And you're going to see we have a couple options here. What I'm able to do is save the home folder as a disk image. So what this will do is this will take that folder there and everything in it and put it into a disk image, a DMG. You've probably seen those when you download an application. It's called a DMG. But basically, it's a way that you could put it onto another hard drive and just keep it as an archival. It will no longer take up any space on your computer because it's just going to be a DMG, and you move it off of your computer and it's gone once you remove it from your computer. But at a later date, you may want to see what's on there. This is one way that you could do that. You can also, don't change the home folder. What this will do is this will remove the user but keep the home folder. I guess there's a reason why you may want to do that, but if you want to delete the user, I would think you'd want to delete the home folder. But there's all kinds of different scenarios. And then you can just delete the home folder altogether. If I use this one, which is typically what I would say people would use, it's either between this one and this one. If I go and do this one and then click on delete user, basically what it's going to do is delete the user from the users and groups. And then what it will do is it'll delete the home folder here and everything in it, and it'll be gone. It'll free up that space that you will not have access to that user unless you had a time machine backup or something along that line, but basically it's gone. So if you want to delete it, you have no use for it, this is what I would recommend. If you want to delete it, but you want to save the information in there for maybe a later date, I would say go to this one. So we're going to use this one, and you'll see how this works. So I'm going to save the home folder as a disk image, and then we're going to go and delete the user. You can see it's doing its little work there. Unable. While backing up this user's home folder. Oh, it's backing up. I don't want it to back up. Skip. Let's try it again. Can't do it while it's backing it up. All right, save the home folder, delete. We can see it's deleting that account. Well, all right. It's giving me a problem because it's backing it up. But you're going to see here basically what it would have done is it would put it into a deleted users, and what I would have there is a file, a DMG file, and I could double click on that and then I'd be able to see everything. And what I would recommend doing is taking that DMG file and put it on a separate hard drive and then delete it from here and free up the space on your Mac if you don't need that information. Or if you do need the information, you could just keep it in there. But what it will do is it'll remove it from here. So let's go ahead. Let's try it one more time here. I'm just going to delete the home folder. Maybe that one will work. That one worked. So it didn't create a DMG. But you're going to see that Tim Cook is gone there now. I'm going to get rid of this folder too. I don't need that. So now that folder is no longer there, and Tim Cook no longer has an account on my Mac. So that's basically what you have to do. For the most part, you just have to make sure that you're logged out. You could restart the computer, or what I would say is, go to login, show your fast user switching, log into that other person if you are logged in. If you're not logged in, all you have to do is just click on it, click the delete, and then you're going to be able to delete it. So hopefully that helps, Mark, but that's basically all there is to it. Just make sure you're clicking on you can't delete your current user. So if I go here, you're going to see I can't delete it. So there's a little bit of a safeguard there. As long as you are in your account, you're not going to be able to delete it. All you can do is delete the other accounts. So there's a little bit of a safeguard there. So make sure that you're logged into your account, and then just go and delete the other accounts that you no longer need. And if you want to keep them as an archive, you can keep them as an archive as well. So that's how you can delete other users.
Dan,
Yeah.
why would anyone want two administrators on their computer?
I think I have two
Not any good
administrators.
reason. It must have been a mistake that he had that, right?
No, well, there's different camps on this, so we can talk about administrators here. I'm on the camp of every user I create is an administrator. Basically two ways to look at it, a couple different ways to look at it. If you create one administrator and then you if you have, let me put it this way. If it is just you on the computer, then yes. You could create as many admins as you want because it's just you. You know what you're doing. I could go into Abigail here, and if I wanted to delete an application, I'd be able to delete an application because it's still my computer. I am that user. But let's just say that, this is my computer and I create an account for my wife. Would I give her admin rights? Some people wouldn't. And I would be one of those that I do. And the reason is Beth is good with computers and she knows that she's not going to delete anything that she shouldn't. And I trust her on that. So I guess it's just a matter of trust. Now, if I were to give this if I had children, maybe that'd be a whole different animal. I probably would, because you can create. If I go and create a new user here, in addition to standard, I can also. Oh no, they took out parental controls and added it to screen sharing. So, different camps. I think a standard user is kind of like a pain in the butt because if I need to delete something, all of a sudden when I go and delete this, let's see here, I have it locked here. If I was here, let's just do this. I'll create a new user. Standard user.
Dan?
Yep.
There's another reason I always create a separate admin user account as an emergency account, because that's part of my troubleshooting routine, that if you have a problem with your computer, then one thing you can do is boot into user number 2. If the problem goes away, that means it's not your computer, it's something in your main account.
Yeah.
And I found that useful numerous times over the past years.
That was always a trick that we used at Apple, even 10, 15 years ago. If someone had a problem with an app, we would create exactly what I'm doing. I'm creating a new account. And if that problem persisted in that new account, then I knew it was something with the operating system.
Yeah.
If it went away, you're absolutely right. Then I knew it was something with that user folder. But I
when
still
I set up a
would.
new computer for somebody, I automatically do that.
Yeah.
Teach them about it so they don't touch it.
Yeah, and that's you're just protecting somebody. That's pretty much protecting them from doing something that they shouldn't be doing. So that is why you would want to do this. And so I created this user. There it is, a standard user, and now I'm going to log in as Tim. Apple. So Tim now is just a standard user, and he's created the account and do all kinds of stuff here. But now let's just say that he wanted to go into the system preferences and make a change on something. In a lot of cases, he would need the administrative account, and that's where the pain comes in. So I'm going to click on that now. We'll skip through these here. Continue. I'm not going to sign in with my Apple ID. Skip it. Set up later. This is the new parental controls. We're not going to enable that. And we're going to set that up later, because this is just a sample. There we go. Now we're in, and I don't need Feedback Assistant. Okay, so if I wanted to make a change in here.
I gotta leave you. Dan. I got an emergency.
Okay, well, hope everything's all right.
Yeah, I think it's okay, but
Good.
I have to go.
Okay.
I had a call. Yeah. Okay.
So let's say I wanted to delete the Samsung portable SSD, and I'm Tim. I'm now a standard user. I can't, I have to enter the administrators. So basically what this person would have to do is get me, and then I would have to do it. Now, let's just say I'm the only user of the computer. Why not just make me the administrator of this account too? So it depends. If it's multiple users, I can see reasons why you may want to. If you are the only user, absolutely create separate accounts, exactly like we talked about earlier. It really helps out in troubleshooting. That is, we use that daily at Apple. But see, now I got to type in Dan Wasink and my password, and that's it. This is exactly why I don't do it. What is my account? I know that's it. Go. Well, it's frustrating for me. So I would not be able to delete that because I don't know what the administrator password is, although I do. I must be typing in the wrong username or something. So my solution to be with that, if it's me, I would give this user administrator rights too. So two users would have administrator, and then I could just use this password to do it. Does that make sense? I guess it depends on the scenario. So I'm going to switch back over to my other one. Oh, because it's under Johnny Appleseed, not Dan Wasink. That's right. So if I would have typed in John Appleseed, it would have got there. So I'm on the camp of 2 administrator accounts is okay. If it is only you on the computer, it's great for troubleshooting. If other people are on the computer, then yeah, you may want to make sure that one of them is a standard user, but just be forewarned that when you need administrator, we've all seen it. You need the administrator rights when you install an application. You need the administrator rights when you do this. You need the administrator rights when you do that. Oh, you need to give Zoom access to the camera. Guess what you need? Administrator rights. So you're opening the door for a big pain in the butt, I'd say. All right. Let's see what we have next. Cindy, what can we do to stop unwanted emails? We've talked about this, and essentially, there's really not a whole lot you can do. You can, mark them as spam, and hopefully that will get rid of them. If you are getting a lot of them, what you'll want to do is create rules. And you want to create these in the cloud. So I would go to iCloud.com. I would go to iCloud or gmail.com, whatever. And you want to kind of do it at the server level. If I was at Outlook, I would, is it Outlook, Office 365, I would go to the web. And when you go to mail here, what you're able to do under preferences is create a rule. And I mentioned this a while back. I was getting a lot of it, and I think other people were too. There was some spammer out there with McAfee, the virus, and your McAfee's gonna expire. Your subscription to McAfee's gonna expire, and I kept getting them. Now I don't get them anymore. Eventually, what happens is Apple finds out about it, and then they block it at the source, or Gmail finds out and they block it at the source. But what you can do is, if the message is from, you don't want to put in if the message is from, because they will switch email addresses. So you're going to be, chasing tail here kind of thing. But I knew every time that particular email came across, it had McAfee in the subject line. So what I would do is I would have the subject contained McAfee, and I would move it to the trash. And when I click on add, anytime I got an email that had McAfee in the subject line, it'd go into the trash. If if I got email from, I don't want to get on the politics side because they seem to be coming on both angles. I got a text from one party and then a text from another party just today. It's like, what you can do is, find out what the trigger words are, and then just go here as a subject, add it, and just keep creating those rules. Another thing, if you have a lot of them, there are services out there that will kind of monitor that for you. I think I was a member of this one, SpamSieve. SpamSieve will work. This is a plugin that you can, been around forever, as you can see by their site. But it's only for the Mac, so it doesn't necessarily work on the iPad and iPhone. So there you go, you run into the problem with that. But this has been around forever, and it works pretty good. John Gruber recommends it. David Pogue recommends it. But again, the problem with this is it's only Mac. There is a couple of services out there that kind of do it at the top. Spam, I can't think of what they are now. But when you put you connect up your email account to them, and they monitor for spam more so than what anyone else does. Yeah, that's pretty much all you can do is create rules for them. Or if it's really, really bad, you just have to get some kind of a service to monitor that for you, and maybe just use them for a while and see how it works. I'll see if I'll think about that in the
And
back
would
of my mind.
Backblaze monitor that for you?
What's that?
Would Backblaze monitor that for you if you asked them?
What's the company?
Backblaze, you know the.
No, they are only backup. So you
Oh.
would need a service that let's see here, mail.
Spam Assassin is one
That-
of the
That's one of them. Yep.
services.
Hmm.
Spam Assassin. Yep, they've been around for a while as well. So there's different services that are out there that you can try and see how that works for you. This isn't the one that I was thinking of yet, though. Let's see here, Spam Assassin. I mean, they even have a Wikipedia article, which is nice. So that's how long they've been around. I'll see if I can find it, and we'll see if we can. If I find it, I'll talk about it at the next AMA. There's one that I used a while ago, and it's like $10 a month or something like that. And basically what it did, it treated mail similar to Spark. As some of you know, I'm a Spark fan. And with Spark, which is, basically mail, what you can do is separate your newsletters from your notifications. You're going to see I have here notifications, and then down here I have newsletters. And a lot of times the spam will come as a newsletter, and I can just zip through those really easy, that kind of thing. And it did this, but it also did spam type stuff too. So if I think of it, I'll bring it up next time. I'll put a note and we'll bring it up next time. So, but that's pretty much all you can do. Yeah.
Dan, a while ago you talked that you were going to try out Hex Killer.
Yes.
How are you feeling about that now?
I stopped using it because I don't get that many. I mean, I just got a couple. I'll admit, but it's really not that many, and I'm cheap. I'm Dutch, so it wasn't worth the money that I was paying for me. Now I believe it was Frank who I don't know if he's with us. He is down in Florida. I know I have a few members in Florida, and hopefully everybody's all right. I know there are a couple of them are here with me today, which is great that they're good. But he said that he tried it and it worked pretty good. So it's tough to say. I stopped using it. It worked, but it was very hard for me because, in all honesty, I maybe get one or two a month. It just happened to be I just got a couple of them. I'm pretty good with my phone number. I'm pretty good with my mail. I do not get a lot of spam, in all honesty. And my email address is old. My danwasink@mac.com. It's public and it's old, but I'm pretty good with it. What I am going to do, here's something that we can do. Going forward, and I should create a video on this. Going forward, what you will want to do when you sign up for something is use an alias. I just told my brother about this when we go for our pizza and beer. So on my Mac, I'm going to just use iCloud, and I'll tell you how you can do it. It's even easier with Gmail. So when I go into my mail here, my email address and this account is noteboomproductions@icloud.com. Now, let's say that when I sign up for a newsletter, unfortunately, this doesn't help out in the past, but going forward, it may help out. What you can do is you can create an alias. And when I add an alias, basically what I'm doing is I can use whatever I want. So I'm just going to go noteboom-newsletter. And I will use that as my email address when I sign up for anything. I could go create another one. I think with Apple you can create up to 5 email aliases. I could call another one, if you want to get on the political wagon, noteboom dash anything I do with politics. If I sign up for a newsletter, if I sign up for, it doesn't matter where you are on what aisle, they all abuse your email address. And what this does then is when they send an email, they will send it to noteboom-newsletter. I could just call it newsletter. It's just another email address. I can call it whatever I want as long as it's available. And then if I use this email address when I sign up for a newsletter, what's going to happen is that person, that organization, or whoever you use this for, when they send you a newsletter, they're going to send it to this email address. Perfect. That's what I want. So let's just call this, we'll go back to newsletter. We'll leave politics out. Newsletter. And this is what I use for newsletters. So I just go add. So you saw that Spam Sieve or one of those websites I went to. Maybe it was the tips, the iPod tip. They had a newsletter, and I could get 15% off. Well, what I would do if I was smart, I would use this email address right here. And when they send me that 15% off coupon and their weekly emails or whatever they do, basically what's going to happen is it's going to still come to my noteboomproductions@icloud.com. It's still going to come to that. But what I'm able to do is if I get too many, if all of a sudden that email got spam or someone got a hold of it and all of a sudden instead of just emails from Contour Tips or whatever it was, or if it's just emails from a certain political organization and all of a sudden, because they share everything, you're getting it from all over, all you have to do to stop those emails, since they're using that address, all I would have to do is just go delete. And now that email address takes up to 7 days. I should have waited there a minute, but there was a little alert that says it takes up to 7 days to delete that. But now what's going to happen is if I use that email address for that Contour Tips, what's going to happen is when they send out their next newsletter, that email address is no longer valid. It's done. I'm not going to receive that email because it's done. So for personal emails, you would use this, your regular email address, and then you could create all these different aliases. And like you say, you have 2 of 3 aliases. So it looks like you can create up to 3 on here. And then you can kind of use them as you need and then just delete them when you're ready if you get too many emails. Gmail is even easier. Gmail, you would just go, so my email address is Dan, I'll just type it in here, danwasink@gmail.com. I can go plus newsletters at gmail.com. And that organization, I'd have to look into. I'm going to create a video on this because I just did, like I say, I just did this for my brother, and he's like, "Oh, I didn't know I could do that." I'm like, "Yeah." The question is with Gmail, how do you get rid of that? I'll create a video on it, so that'll be up on my site in the next week or so. But aliases are great for something like that. Like I said, it doesn't help in the past. It's not going to do anything for people that already have your old email address. But going forward,
Dan?
it could be a way to minimize
Dan?
it. Yes.
The plus trick works for Apple emails.
Oh,
too,
does it?
For iCloud emails.
Sweet.
Yeah. And what I've done in the past with the plus, when you do that, it makes it very easy to create rules to filter from your regular thing. It really improves the rules process.
Awesome. So based on what Phil is saying there, let's go over to that contour. Well, here, let's go to my site. And what you would do when you sign up to my slow site. So let's say you want to sign up here for a 30-day. So what Phil is saying, and you could do, and I didn't know. Thank you, Phil. So I could
I hope it still works.
I'm sure it does. I don't. I've never tested it. So
Yeah.
I would sign in Dan Wasink, Dan Wasink, and Dan Wasink, and then I would go plus Dan's Tutorials at mac.com. So
the advantage of the plus is, if your email has been sold by that.
Yep.
Exactly. So
Website.
if all of a sudden if you were to, I don't share your email addresses with anyone, and if I were to, all of a sudden, if you were to start getting emails from another organization that had this email address, you know that something happened. I did sell it or something. Somebody gave me an offer I couldn't refuse. I don't know.
That was that tip was on TikTok just last week from a Mac person.
Yeah,
And
I love the idea of the
Yeah.
rules. And you're
Yes.
right. It's so easy to. So when I create my my test accounts, when I need to do something, this is exactly how I do it. I just use my Gmail account, but because I've never tried it, I
Yeah.
should.
Try and make sure it works. But
I'll do that.
It's easier than doing the aliases.
Yeah, it
plus
is,
you can
and
have unlimited.
it's unlimited. You could just Dan's Tutorials for that contour tips. I could use plus contour tips. If I it's unlimited, and exactly like someone else said, you'd be able to see exactly when someone shared your information. So
Yeah.
Thank you. All right.
Dan,
Yep.
Dan, I have another question, and maybe I'm missing the connection here, but what's the difference between Alias and hide my email?
Alias has been around for a while. Hide My Email is relatively new. And what Apple with Hide My Email, I'm going to be very, very broad here because I'll be honest, I don't really quite understand Hide My Email yet myself, even though it's been around for a couple of years. I should look into that. But I think what they do is they do the work for you on that. They will create an alias for you, and only that when you sign up with Hide My Email, what they are doing is they're creating a random email address that only goes out to that organization. Exactly what they're creating an alias for you, and then what you're able to do is delete that.
Okay, I've used it a couple times, but I don't know if I can tell what the results. If I've gotten any results.
I'm with you and I signed up for our local paper, Holland Sentinel, just last week. Again, my brother and I were having problems with signing in and this, that, and the other, and so I signed up for it, and I think he used Hide My Email. So now what he needs to do is when he logs into the paper, the Holland Sentinel website, he needs to use that email address, and so it's good, but you have to be a little. I love the plus. I'm gonna start using
Okay.
that. So Phil came up with a genius one there. So,
Good.
Well,
Well,
if you use Hide My Email, you can go on your account online and see what you
yeah.
a list of the ones you've created. So
Yep.
you don't have to remember them.
So
oh,
like
cool.
what he's talking about, so I would go to mail. I haven't used it on this account, especially on this account, but in here would be the hide my emails somewhere in here, right, Phil?
I think it's in accounts.
Accounts.
No, I think.
But I haven't, yeah, there it
Uh,
is. Hide my email.
yeah,
Go to
yeah.
cloud
Okay.
settings. So exactly what Phil's talking about. What I could do is, if I signed up for the Howland Sentinel with hide my email, that email address would only be used for the Howland Sentinel. So it's basically like creating an alias, but it's only for the Howland Sentinel. Apple will protect that email address so no one else can get at it. And then if you ever want to, stop it, maybe it did get compromised somehow, then you can go to your iCloud settings and delete it, just like an alias.
Yeah.
And it's all automatic.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And thank you, Phil, for helping us out there. All right. Next, John asks, what is the iPhone 14 Pro emergency messaging? So what this is, what Apple introduced with the iPhone 14, and I did a little bit of reading up on it. I still do not have an iPhone 14. If I ordered one, I wouldn't get it until the end of October, and we're going to be out of town. So I'm just kind of waiting to see if I can get one, if they all of a sudden get them in stock, or I'll just have to wait till we get back, if Florida is still there. So we're going to Key West. It looks like they're pretty sparse down there. But anyway, what I did, so I did a little research on it. And for those of you who do not know, what Apple came out with is emergency SOS messaging with the iPhone. And it is not a Pro only. It looks like it's available on any iPhone 14. And essentially what you're going to be able to do is, if there is no Wi-Fi and there is no cellular coverage, so Florida is a perfect example, right now. If you're in a situation, they don't have any cell coverage, they don't have any, Wi-Fi is all down, or if you're a hiker, another perfect situation, and something happens, what you'd be able to do is use your iPhone to connect up to a satellite, which is incredibly crazy to me. But basically, you will aim your iPhone, exactly what you're showing here. It's not available yet, so no one's been able to test it out. But basically, what you're going to be able to do is you just hold your iPhone and it finds the satellites. So, if you're in a dense forested area, could be a problem. Just try to find something that's lightly dense. And what you're going to be able to do is text. It takes a long time. You're looking at, I think they said anywhere from 15 seconds to a minute to do anything. So you're not going to be able to make any calls, but it will be able to say, hey, there's something, there's an emergency. And what it will also do is send your location. So, oops, you're not looking at my screen. There we go. So this is, I just pulled up their webpage here. So you can see here, it says turn left to stay connected to the satellite, and then you'd be able to send something. Obviously, the clearer the sky, the better the connection is going to be, but it did say that it will work even in lightly dense, like in a forested area, just can't be too dense, that kind of thing. And you're going to be able to text. It only works if you are not available, if Wi-Fi is not available or cellular is not available. They're giving you a 2-year subscription for free. So apparently there's going to be a cost with this down the road. I haven't heard anything on the cost. Apple hasn't said anything. They just said for the first 2 years are included. That's all they've said. And, who knows, maybe by 2 years they'll have it figured out and they can just include it on every phone. This is a little bit in competition with what T-Mobile and SpaceX came with. I don't know how many people people pay attention to SpaceX, but they just made a major announcement probably about 3 weeks ago, and I wonder if it was because they had a little bit of wind of this. But they're kind of doing the same thing. They're going to be able to connect up to with a T-Mobile phone, and it just uses the standard bands that the government is letting people use for this kind of thing, and you're going to be able to connect up to Starlink. And again, just like with this, you're not going to be able to make phone calls or anything like that, but it's just used in emergency. Apple has said, and I did see a statement on this, they are working with Starlink and SpaceX to also use their iPhones, because any phone, as long as it can get this specific bandwidth, which I guess most phones can, will be able to use that. So what you're seeing now, which is awesome, and which is really cool, and really just technologically mind-boggling, but basically your phones now are going to be able to connect up via satellite when they need to. You're not going to be able to watch videos. You're not with Starlink. Elon Musk says that you will be able to make a phone call, possibly, but the bandwidth is so limited. But so use it for emergency use only, that kind of thing. It's very sparse, but basically what you're going to be able to do is basically use these phones anywhere. Emergency
So Dan, how
situations,
would
all
you
that.
use it?
So.
Would you dial 911 and then have to search for the
No,
satellite?
essentially, there's an app that.
Oh, it's an app.
Yep, my AirPods are falling out. I need those tips. So there's a special app, and again, nobody's been able to try this out because it hasn't been. It's going to come out in a future update. But there's a base with the iPhone right down here. What I would do is I would hold the phone, and they say just hold it normally. You don't want to, just don't put it in your pocket, and then it'll tell you where the satellite is, and then from there, what you're going to be able to do is text. And I believe it even has like pre-canned text to where, if you're in a situation to where you can't type or anything like that, what you can do is you can just use that as well. So pretty cool stuff, especially for hikers and emergency situations like what's going on in Florida. I think it's pretty neat. So, but we
Hi,
don't.
Betty.
That's all we know about it for now.
Yeah,
How you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Yeah.
Good. Listen, calling you. This is
We're
a
going
fast
to
call. but
mute
I
everyone
talked to
again.
the- I told her how many people that was interested, but I called for trans.
There we go. Again, unmute yourself if you have a question. So let's see, what else do we have? All right, this is from Betty, and I actually asked her to send me a couple screenshots because I didn't quite understand what she was talking about. This is actually about a friend of hers. So pinned groups and individuals don't appear when using, they're falling out, when using messages. And I'm like, I wonder what she means by that. I didn't quite get it. So let's go over to my iPhone, and I'll show you first what pinned messages, and then she sent me a couple screenshots, and then I'm like, oh, I get it now. And Betty, I don't have an answer for you. I'll just spoil it right there, because I am as frustrated as your friend is. I don't get where the information comes from. So when I go to messages here, what you're able to do is pin people up at the top. So I have Beth pinned and I have my friends pinned. So let's go, if I wanted to pin Dan's group, I'm using iOS 16. So the way that I do that is I long press on it and I go to pin. And now Dan's group is up at the top. And it's great in the aspect of they're always up at the top. So if you have a lot of conversations, you can always find all of your people up at the top. And if you look at mine, let's see if I have it. I'll just show it up to the camera here. When I go to my messages here, we can see, where are you? I have my family, my friends, all pinned up at the top. So it works really well because they're always up at the top there. So what Betty was asking is when you go to a message or if you want to share something. So let's say I'm in Safari here. I would like to share this web page with some of my friends, maybe to Beth. I want to share this web page with Beth and say, hey, I'm going to get this, and what I would do is I would just go down to the bottom, nothing earth shattering here. And I can go to the top here, and this little row here, you would think that this is where the pinned people would be. At least I think that's what Betty's talking about. And is that kind of what you're thinking about, Betty?
Yes, on
Yep.
my phone it is. It works perfectly.
It does not work perfectly on mine, and it's I'm with your friend. It's very frustrating. I don't know where it's pulling this information from, because it is not my pinned people. On my demo phone, it's not. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, she thinks, and I think also that it broke at 15.7 installation
I'm using
before 16.
I'm using 16 on both of mine, and
Yeah.
it's not fixed yet, because I should see Beth up here, right? As a pinned. That's what
Right.
and it's not there, and I don't know how to edit it. So what I do is I just go to messages.
And type, right?
Yep. And
Yeah.
so when you sent that screenshot and then all of a sudden I put it all together, it's like, oh, I get it now. If I go to, let's see, I'll try it. I'll just hold it up to my screen here. So here, those people at the top are not my pinned, and this is my personal iPhone. So I'm running into the same thing. So if anybody has any suggestions on, I don't know. It's been like that as long as I can remember. So.
And mine
Yours
works perfectly, but yes.
I always thought it was with people that you text, the latest people that you text. So in my case here, if I go back to my phone, the MB here, can't really see it, but the MB there is the person that I texted last. So it's like recent, but not my pinned. So it's my recent people.
Yeah, it's very strange.
I do not have an answer. So
I did call Apple, and they didn't have any solutions.
Did they say that should be? Has anyone else? I'll ask this. Does anyone else see that where they're, what we're talking about? Share a page, share anything. I'm just in Safari. Is it your pinned people up here at the top?
I just looked at mine, and it looks like it's recents.
Yeah, recent.
Yeah.
It's not the pins.
Yep. That's what I
Recents
get.
and not the pinned. And the other thing about pinned groups, that you might see a badge on I see a badge sometimes on my messages app indicating that I have 3 messages or whatever that I've unread. And I can't find the unread part in the body of the text conversations, but I find that, oh, gee, it's from a group, but there's no badge up there on the group.
That's I love the pinned, and sometimes I think I'm going to get rid of them. I don't, because I'm with you. You can't, when you're looking at your conversations here. It's kind of hard to see that. Oh, there's where that unread one is. Like if Beth sent me a message, I might not be able to see that right away. I know exactly what you're talking about. What you can do, iOS 16, I think you can do it in iOS 15. I always got to clarify myself because I know everyone hasn't upgraded yet. But you're able to see unread messages here.
Yeah.
That's in 16, not in 15.
Okay.
But yeah.
So all of because we've all had that elusive.
That's a great solution.
Yeah, we've all had that elusive message, like I know it's, and you can't find where that unread message to get rid of that stupid badge. Well, now what you're able to do is, if you're looking at all your messages, just go up to filter in the upper left-hand corner here.
Right.
And then you can go to unread messages.
Well, thank you. I'm going to keep working on it.
All right. If you hear anything, let me know.
I sure will.
It seems like other people are it's the same thing as me. It seems like recent. Maybe you're the
Uh-huh.
anomaly there.
Yes,
Wow.
I'm another thing about 16 in messages that, and I find this so useful, that you can mark something that you want to return to
Mhm.
so it doesn't get lost. Have you been using that?
I haven't, but so what Betty's talking about is it's almost like messages is becoming email kind of thing. So
Yes.
what you're able to do is mark a message as unread, much like marking an email as unread.
Mhm.
And the idea behind it is, let's say that Betty messaged me and it came up across here and I read it and I'm like, "Huh, okay, I'll get back to that in a little bit." I swipe up, the badge is gone because I read it and I'm going to forget
Mhm.
about it. It will not, I
Mhm.
won't remember it. So now what you can do, when you go back to the conversation, when you swipe, that message is now unread. And you're going to see, it's kind of hard to see here, but I have the red badge on there telling me that I have an unread message, even though it is
Uh-huh.
read. So that's what Betty's, and it is. It's a nice feature because we've all had those messages. In fact, I need to tell my brother about this because he's the worst.
Uh-huh. Okay,
But
and the little blue dot that it places next to it reminds you to go back and do
Mhm.
something with it.
and
So that
hope,
has really been great.
and hopefully I can go to unread messages here, and there it is. Mhm.
Yep, there it is.
Yep. So
It's
yeah,
great.
that is so you can treat messages almost like emails for the most part. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks, Dan.
Sure thing. All right. All right. Fran, and welcome, Fran. I heard you.
I know, sorry I was late, but
Oh,
I
that's all
taught.
right. Fran asked a couple of questions here. First one is, what's the best way to digitize my music? So, essentially what you're going to need to do, I got my trusty old CD player out. You just need to get, just a CD. This thing's so old, Blu-ray. I think I paid $100 for it back in 2000. This was manufactured in 2013, so it's almost 10 years old. So I'm sure you can get them for half that price. It's just standard USB. It doesn't have to be Apple. USB. And essentially, this is a burner also. Not that I use it for that. But all you have to do is just grab your CD. So I have this Disney CD. I need to make sure my volume is turned down so I don't get dinged for anything if I put this on YouTube for people to view. But basically, all you have to do is pop the CD into your CD player that you buy on Amazon or whatever for probably $50.
Mhm.
And what it's going to do is show up on the computer here shortly. Yep, CD player is working. I can feel it rattling around in there. And there it is. So we can see that. There's the CD. So now what you want to do is you want to rip this. It's actually pretty easy to do. Music app, the new iTunes, just asks you, do you want to import this CD? And all I have to do is just say yes. You can see it's over here. It actually went out on the internet. You want to make sure you're on the internet because what it will do is it will go and grab all of the titles for the,
Wow.
it goes to the IMDb, which is owned by Amazon. It goes somewhere. And that's
Just say
pretty much it. It is importing. We can see
wow.
I can stop the importing. We can see what it's doing here. And
Wow.
once it's done importing, those files, so I'm going to hide this. Those files are in your music media. Just keep digging down. There it is, Disney. 4 Parks is
Oh,
the album.
oh, wow.
And it's
Oh,
importing those in. That's pretty much all you have to do. is
Oh, wow.
you're going to
But
see the
now when
single
I
start.
want to access that,
So
do I
when
have
once they're in this folder and they're in the music app, you are then able to, so there's just ripped another song there. What you're able to do in the music app is go and play them. So I'm going to stop importing. We're just going to, we got a few of them.
Oh, that's great.
And if I go to browse, I should, go to my library, albums. There it is, 4 Parks.
Wow.
Click on it.
So I don't need to be taking out my old stereo player and putting in the, oh my goodness.
And if
Oh.
you are an Apple One user, that's their $29 where you get everything with it.
I'm
Or
not,
if you,
but-
okay, what you can do is this will upload or it'll sync with iCloud, and then you're able to access from all of your different devices as well. So you'll
Oh,
be able
so
to access it
Apple One would be useful for that.
for that.
Me.
hmm
Wow.
It used to
No.
be. There's also iTunes Match, I think is what their original thing was, and basically what
Right,
that
I
did.
still use that.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah,
So
because I'm
iTunes
not
Match
paying.
is built is a cheaper version of Apple One. Let's look at it.
iTunes
I think
Match.
it was $24.
A year, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And Apple
iTunes
One's
Match.
29.
Okay, so they still offer it. I didn't know if they still offered it. Subscribe to iTunes Match. So basically what this does is if you don't want to get into the Apple One with all of the other stuff that they have, what this will do is this will, when any music you add into the music app or iTunes, basically what it'll do is if they have it in their library, they will make that it's like you own it, like they'll make it accessible on any one of your devices. Now here's the really cool part. I have, because I was going to use this, I have a CD here somewhere
Oh my goodness.
of
That's
my
great.
uncle. He was in a band in the 60s called the Sheffields. So this is just a regular old CD, and
Is that a homemade CD? I mean, because if
Yep.
you have a homemade one and I don't want to go to the internet because of something specific.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, this is a homemade CD. So this is not available on iTunes. This is my uncle's music that we ripped from reel to reels. So this is not something you're going to, this is back in the 60s. So
Yeah.
obviously this is not going to be on Apple iTunes or Prime Music or any. He passed away. This is not anywhere out in public. But what I can do is I can rip this using the same method there. And then if I have iTunes Match, Apple will look at that and say, well, we don't have this in our library. We will upload it and make it available on all of your different devices. No one else is going to have access to it. So they're not sharing it. They're not doing anything like that. But what I would have access to is this music on my iPhone, on my iPad, anything
Wow,
that.
that's awesome.
So the iTunes Match, if it's Disney or anything like that, they'll have that in their library, of course. So basically, what they'll do is they'll say, "Oh, okay, you have access to this." This one's
but
not
if
in their
you've-
library.
But if you've taken some song that you can get on the internet, but you changed it or whatever, how do you make sure that it gets put into your music
If you
library?
changed
with
it,
the-
I'm not exactly sure how they match it. So if
So
it's,
don't accept a match then?
I don't know. Let's see here. Sync. If songs are missing, no.
How do you mean change it though, Chris?
Yeah. How are you changing it?
Okay, well, I was given some CDs that had some music on it, and they changed some of they made it the chorus more times or added more to it. And so it's a private CD, like what you were saying with
Yeah.
your uncle's band
Yeah.
music. And I want to keep it in the format that it is. rather than
They
it
will
going to
never,
it.
I'll go with this. They would never erase your original
Okay,
because that's your
that's what,
original. Yep. They will
okay,
not do
that
that.
answers it. Okay.
Hmm. I'm
Dan,
just not sure if that original would be available on your other devices because it might look close enough to where they're like, oh, we got something like that in our library, and they might supply you with what they have in their library on your other devices. So yes, go ahead, Dale.
do you have an app that will speed up the ripping? I've used what you're doing, but the other thing too is one that does it in the background, because when you're ripping it, you can't do anything else from what I've seen in the back before.
No, it really depends on this guy, I think, the speed of your DVD player, and the quality of the CD. Those are the two factors. The iTunes will slow it down if it's having a problem with it. Let's see here, advanced and files, import settings, iTunes Plus. Use error correction will slow it down because it needs to try to do some error correction. I think it just depends on the CD player and the quality of the CD. So if it's pretty
So
scratched up, it might have a problem with it, and it's going to be slow.
Oh. So
But I've
Dan,
not had. Oh, go ahead.
sorry, my husband has one of those CD-ROM things,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm not going to harm my new Mac by plugging that in. It's a
This
USB.
thing is a 2013 plugged into my
Brand new Mac.
2021 MacBook Air M1. So
Okay.
nope.
Wow, that's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Dan, one other thing, that if anybody has like an old Windows machine with still a DVD player in it or a CD player in it, you can also use iTunes for Windows and do the same exact method,
Mm-hmm.
and it works just fine. Now, I don't know, obviously won't save it from device to device because
Right.
you're using a Windows base, but other than that, it works just fine.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank-
and essentially, these DVD players do wear out. My mom, people say like, "Oh, these things wear out. The lenses get dirty, they get foggy." My mom has an old Bose, and she actually joined us for our pizza and beer this past Tuesday, and she's said to my brother and I, she's 81, and she likes her music loud. She wants a subwoofer. It's probably where I get my problems. But she's like, I need a new CD player because it won't play any of her music anymore. So I'm like, well, Mom, you're part of my Apple One. You can just use your phone for everything. Just tell it to play Elvis. She loves Elvis. She loves Randy Travis. And she's like, no, I just want to play a CD. Like, all right. But sometimes those CD players, back on with what Dale was saying, is if it's getting slow, it could be just that the lens on the CD player is getting old, and you just try another one. Like the other person said, is maybe try it on a different computer. Maybe that CD player can read it better. There's a lot of variables. So
Okay.
I think the most irritating part of it is that it won't do it in the background. I don't care how fast it is, as long as I can do something else.
Yeah.
now I
right.
can do this in the background. So I go 4 parks. I'm going to import it.
That's when you take a break from your computer and get a cup of coffee.
True. So it's importing
Takes
it.
longer than that.
We can see it's importing it here, and I'm just going to hide it. And we'll just go.
Yeah, it'll work in the background.
Mhm.
I digitized about 40 or 50 CDs while I was doing other things. I just
Yeah.
get
Wow.
it started and then
Yeah, I could even
ignore
go.
it.
I could even watch a YouTube video on here, and it's just
Yeah,
working
it-
in the
it-
background. So I don't know. Yeah, it's still going at
I
it.
haven't tried it in so long that maybe something changed along the way, but I know at some point in the past I tried. I
And
mean,
you
I've
had a
got
problem with it. Yeah, I'd
300
say
or
try it
400.
again.
Yeah,
Oh, well.
it works. I just
Mhm.
went through a whole bunch of CDs trying to get rid of them,
Hmm.
but I wanted the music. So
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Thank you.
All right. So that's how you
Now,
can
would
do
that
that.
work? Sorry, that just brings up another thing. Then would it work in my car? Like if I did have my Chopin nocturnes or
Well,
something
no.
in
Okay. So,
CarPlay? If,
yeah, with CarPlay it would absolutely because
yeah?
if you use
Yeah.
iTunes Match,
Oh,
yeah, it's
good.
available on your phone. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Thank
Yep.
you.
All right. Our next question, I think, is from Fran as well. I think this might be the last one. Yep. She's asked, could you review the best way to record passwords?
I know. So it's going to be cumbersome no matter what, right? There is no quick fix now.
Well, there is kind of, and Apple and Microsoft and Google are. I'm not going to talk about their new pass key thing because that's still not available, and we're still a few years off from that being. So I won't get into that, but yeah. So you could go the old-fashioned way of writing them down on a piece of paper,
Yeah,
and that would
and
work.
I did them on my computer and you said, no, no, no.
Right. Yeah. I would say the next step was put them into a, like on your computer, like in a text edit
Manager.
file or something like that. Don't do that. And the reason is anybody that gets into your computer would then be able to access those passwords. And a lot of times these scams, not that anyone falls for these, but, my mother-in-law did. They said, "Hey, there's a problem with your computer," and she let them get into her computer. And when they do that, luckily nothing happened. But when they do that, what they are doing is they are looking for files on your computer that have all of your passwords, because that's how a lot of people did that. So what they would do is just look for documents that have passwords, and then they could download that, and then they'd have your passwords, that kind of thing. A little bit of an old school trick, but that's basically how it works. So what you could do is you could go into Notes and you could put I'm just describing different ways of doing it. You could put them in here, all your passwords, and then,
We can't see your screen.
oh, sorry, thank you.
And why notes?
Well,
Wouldn't
it's
it
just
still be on my
because
computer?
here's the reason why Notes, I can lock it.
Oh, right.
So if I
Well, you
lock
could do that in Pages then, right? You could do it in Pages.
You could do that in Pages as well. Yep.
Lock it.
But
Oh,
my favorite, and that might be a way of doing it.
You can do it in numbers. Numbers is another way that you
numbers,
can
yeah.
password
numbers
protect.
as well.
And that's a much better way to do passwords,
Yep.
a much easier way.
Oh,
So
good.
Yes,
that's-
thank you. Numbers would be
That's
far
right.
better.
That would be way better. Thank you. 'Cause
Yeah,
I do
but
have
make
it
sure
in
you
Pages.
password protect it.
Yep. I was just going to
Yes.
say that.
Yes.
So I'll just create a
I
blank
would
one.
bite the bullet and pay for -lane or 1Password because
Well-
it has so many more features than just saving
Yeah,
passwords.
But then I have to I would have to retype them anyways.
Well, what you
No.
do, so
No,
here's,
you don't. You save them as you
right.
go.
Yeah,
So-
but the problem is, what about the ones I didn't save that are like,
Well, the next time you go to that website and type in the password,
It'll remember it.
1Password will save it.
Yeah.
So here's where you set your password. Perfect.
Yep.
If you wanted to use your a number spreadsheet, and the beauty of
That's
putting them
okay,
in a
I do
number
that.
spreadsheet, what you could do is go username for the column and password here, and you'd be able to export this out if you wanted to use 1Password, LastPass, or even Apple's iCloud, that's what I use, Apple's iCloud password manager. You could import this in there. So if you had a list of all these and all of a sudden you wanted to use a password manager,
Yeah.
then you'd be able to with Apple, and I'm sure you can do it with 1Password and all that. But basically, if I go over to my system preferences and I go to my passwords here,
Yeah. Passwords are low.
you're going to see down here, I can import that. And I just import that, I'd be able to import that number spreadsheet in here. So, and then all of a sudden those passwords would be in there. So
Oh, wow.
you could, use the old-fashioned piece of paper. The problem with the piece of paper is
That's no good.
that if you're at somewhere else, or it's hard to find that information. It could
Yeah.
be, or if it changes, exactly like the other person said. So that's okay, but kind of a not convenient. Numbers is a
Okay.
little bit more convenient. You could use iCloud, and but then you have to unlock it and look it up. And if you change your password, then you have to go and put the new password in there and all that. The next way would be using I prefer iCloud, but you know, 1Password and LastPass do a lot more. Exactly what the other person said. You can do a lot more with it. iCloud's version of their password manager is basically a password manager, where 1Password will manage your identity, and you know, just it does a lot more. It's good stuff. But if you use Apple's version, it will just go and save these passwords as you use them, and you can go and look them up. Exactly. Let's see. I think I have a demo one in here. I'm going to search. Yeah, demo. So I'm not going to show anybody a password that I'm using here. Oops, not that one. Demo. There we go. So the username for this demo is username, but then the password is password. So if I go and change it for this site, demo.com, Apple will go and save that new password in there, and I can go and look it up, and I can even put a note in here saying, you know, what it's for, something like that. So this is the preferred way, and then like say 1Password and all that, even take it another level up from here.
Where's that, Dan? iCloud?
So this is all part of iCloud, and essentially all you have to do is just go to Safari. You use Safari for your browser, or do you use Google Chrome?
Both. I just
Okay,
switch.
so
But
this works
usually
on Safari. So if you're using
Yeah.
Google Chrome, you're going to have to use their method.
No,
But if you go to Safari and you go to Preferences,
yeah.
you're going to see under
Password.
Autofill. Sorry, it's under Autofill. And you want to make sure that your usernames and passwords are checked. So now what it is going to do is when you enter in a password and a username, so let's say you go to my site and you put in your username, you put in your password, what Safari will then do is save that. Now let's say you change that password down the road. Safari will go and remember that. On top of that, now that you saved it on your Mac, you could go to your iPad, and that username and password is going to be there, and you can log in, so you don't have to look it up on that piece of note. You don't have to open up numbers or anything like that. So it's all just kind of seamless. And I was a 1Password user up until probably about 4 or 5 years ago when Apple introduced this. It was very buggy in the beginning, but I have fully embraced it. But I do not use. I don't want to knock 1Password down. It has some features that iCloud does not have. I just need it for a basic username and password. If that's all you need, it is great. If you're looking for more, you know, you can check out 1Password.
Dan, can you set that up on your iPhone, or you have to go through the Mac?
No, you can set that up on your iPhone as well. So if I go to my iPhone here,
As long as your devices are synced, it'll go
you
across all
got
of
it. If I go to Settings,
Okay.
and you're going to see I have here passwords, and there's all my passwords. All you have to do is make sure that autofill is turned on. So if I go and change that
that's
password, here, let me see if I go, let's search for demo.
How come that red exclamation mark is there to scare you?
Oh, because it's meant to scare you. 1Password does this as well. Basically, what they're saying is you're using the same password on multiple sites.
Yeah, which I do.
Yeah. And the problem with that, as you can see, I do too. I have 380 of them.
Yeah.
The problem with that is that if someone were to get my username and password for one of those sites, guess what they got? My username and password for all those other sites. So what you can do is you can go in here and basically it kind of steers you through. You can't see it. I have more detail here. They're hiding it from you. But
Okay, good. Yeah.
this password has appeared in a data leak, which puts this account at high risk. You should change your password immediately.
I've
Change
got
password.
those notices and scares me too, because I use the same password.
Yep.
So
So
do you
I
change
go
would
and
recommend you go through those and
Yep.
change them all.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I would too, even though you look at mine and it looks like
I get
horrific.
notices about breaches all the time
Yeah.
since I have the email since 1997.
Yep.
And I have 1900 passwords in my one password, and I'm able to open it up using my Apple Watch. So I don't even have to remember
Mm-hmm.
the password to get into one password.
wow.
Yeah.
1Password.
It's a paid service. They've been around for a long time, and it's a good service.
I know
And
you've mentioned it
they do
before.
more than what Apple iCloud does. So it just depends on. I would say research it. You could start out with iCloud, and then you can always move it over to 1Password as well. So
Yeah. I like the numbers idea because I have mine in Pages and it's
Yeah.
locked.
Yeah.
So I could take Pages and copy and paste it into numbers,
right,
right?
and that might be a way just to start out. Like I say, you just got to you don't want to go all in on something. So what you could do, just make sure you put a password on it in numbers.
Yeah.
Which is easy to do. Under file, just go password,
And
then
that's safe. You think
Yep.
that's safe?
Yep.
Yeah. As long as I set a password.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yep.
thanks for
Don't
all
forget
those
that
ideas.
password though.
Yeah, right. Yep. And I got to write that password down in on a piece of paper somewhere,
Yes, yes, yep, yes, you do.
right?
Yes,
Oh, wow.
passwords. Ugh.
I'm looking for an
They're
easy
coming
way
out. They're coming out with a solution, but I don't know that much about it. Passkeys, and so I can't. I'm not going to
Thank you,
explain it because I don't know
everybody.
that much about it. But there is a solution coming down the road. So
Well, that's good to know. Okay, thank you.
that's all I have for the questions. So rolled through them pretty good here. What time is it? 7:23. All right, about our normal time.
Good session.
Yep.
Very
Thank
good.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All
Thanks,
right,
Dan.
let's call that a wrap. And next week, I remember last week I was talking that. Well, here I'll stop recording. So, thank you, blah blah blah. Thank you for your support.